I want to tell you about a guy named Zach Radcliff. And I'll show you a page from Liberty University's website because they love Zach Radcliff. In fact, this is what they posted about the guy in 2019. Liberty alumnus debuts patriotic song as part of national conference. Well, let's see what they say here. Basically, Zach Radcliff up here was invited to perform at CPAC, the insane conference for crazy right-wing people, and they were proud of him, so they wanted to promote him. It was an opportunity I've dreamed about for a long time, said LU alumnus and songwriter Zach Radcliff, who debuted his new single, I'll Stand, during a portion of CPAC. To be able to stand up at my alma mater with the people that I love and the people who crafted my musicianship and songwriting, it is a surreal feeling. Unbelievable. Only God could have brought this about. There was actually video that Liberty University posted of Zach playing his song at CPAC, and right behind him in the corner is Jerry Falwell Jr., because I think it took place at Liberty University. And it's just like, oh, that did not age well at all. But okay, there's Liberty University saying, this is one of our guys. He's performing at CPAC. We're so proud of him. By the way, who is Zach Radcliff besides that? He's also the worship director at Oakwood Church in Michigan, which is a pretty big church. He's a big supporter of Donald Trump, as you could see from his Instagram page. And you will never guess what happened to this dude. I'll give you one guess. Let me just share with you the front page from a newspaper, the headline. Church leader charged with sexually abusing children. Let's scroll down, shall we? Zachary Joseph Radcliff, 29, was arraigned on a charge of first-degree criminal sexual conduct, 2 charges of aggravated child sexually abusive activity, 2 charges of child sexually abusive activity, and 6 charges of using the internet to communicate with another to commit a crime. He faces up to life in prison. My God. What the hell did this guy do? Right? And then you find out what he did. And listen, trigger warning, I guess it's very disturbing stuff. Penal codes cited in court documents indicate Radcliff is accused of producing child sexually abusive material, including material with a prepubescent child, a video, or more than 100 images. And the charges date back as far back as June of 2014. He's 29 now. That means he was doing this when he was 19 and presumably a student at Liberty. So that's this dude. He just got arrested for just the worst kind of crimes, right? So he's being held on $3 million bond. He's set to appear in front of a judge on Halloween, coincidentally. And by the way, Liberty University's press release, where they were promoting how awesome this guy was, and they were so proud of him at CPAC, they've totally deleted that page from the internet. I was writing an article about this dude, and I was watching that Liberty University video of him performing at CPAC. And as I was watching it, and I definitely saved a copy, but as I was watching it, they took down the video in the middle of my viewing it. They want to pretend that never happened at all. So that's interesting. I went to the church's website. Like, what does Oakwood Church say about any of this? Because the church has to have thoughts about this, right? And the entire front page of the church, I shit you not, this is the front page of the church right now. It is just a giant disclaimer that says, yeah, we all know why you're here right now. The real website is down here. But first, what do they say? All right, let's read through this. We received some very disturbing news about our music and youth director, Zachary Radcliff, who is also the son of our senior pastor, Frank Radcliff. We realized while talking to him that there was more to the situation than what was being expressed. Like, what did he tell you was happening? I'm very curious. Just so you have a timeline here, it looks like the police investigated this dude and came forward with charges on like October 2nd. And I think they must have gone to the church on October 2nd and said, hey, your guy is in big trouble. And so, according to this, he was suspended with pay on October 3rd, pending further investigation. That's fine. They don't know what he did. They suspended him, still paying him. All right, whatever. More information was given to us on Saturday, October 12th at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. That's very specific. Pastoral staff met with our church that evening, and Sunday morning, Zach was terminated from his job without pay, effective Saturday. What the hell did they learn that day? I don't know. But they go on to say, we're not aware of the full extent of his crimes. We're doing everything we can to cooperate with the police. That's good. The information that we did receive was shocking. We are told that Zachary had been soliciting inappropriate photos and possibly videos from teens. We've also heard other stories, which is a very vague thing to say given the circumstances. This information has ripped our hearts apart because you know who's really suffering here? It's not the victims, it's the church. Anyway, look, I will give the church some credit. The police said, this is the situation. The church was like, well, we'll investigate this. And then the police said, here's more information. And the church is like, oh, no. So they got rid of the guy and they're basically cooperating with the police. And that's good. Like, they should be commended for fully cooperating with the police. All right, that's fine. The church also said, if anyone has any further information about this dude, you should not contact us. Go contact the Michigan State Police. And that's also a very important thing for them to say. Certainly the staffers at this church cannot be trusted. I think the kids would have been infinitely safer listening to drag queens read stories at a library than attending youth group at this church. Okay. Another interesting thing about the timeline here is that he was suspended on October 3rd when the church leaders must have had some idea of what allegations were coming. Well, on October 6th, his daddy, Frank Radcliff, delivered a sermon ironically titled, "Not Today, Satan." It was part of a series, pre-planned, but there you go. But I watched that sermon. He didn't say anything about the allegations. In fact, the only time his son's name came up was at the very end of the sermon when he said, we always finish service with song. We're not going to do that today. We always finish a song by hearing Zach tell us to go be the church. Well, go be the church. Give somebody a hug. Which also, I don't think you want the members of this church touching anybody right now. And then the sermon that he gave on October 20th, after Zach was terminated from his job, included no mention of the kid. Actually, he's 29. He's not a kid. There's no video of a service that occurred on October 13th after they fired him. I don't know if they scrubbed that from the internet or what. But there was a service listed in the church's calendars. Very curious what they said during that service to members. But this is a family that has spent many years trashing all things liberal. Like during the height of the pandemic, when people were literally avoiding going downtown, going outdoors as much as possible, Zach Radcliff actually led church members in a downtown maskless sing-along that marched to like a local cemetery. And I don't have video of this, but I want to just tell you, I found video from 2022 in which Zach and his father Frank appeared on a radio show of a Christian radio host named Chris Ayotte. And at one point, Ayotte started bringing up this. He said, and I quote, "Then you have this gender identity ideology, which is from the pit of hell because it's confusing our children. These are children. And we're going to enable and reward gender dysphoria." And in response to all that anti-trans stuff, Frank Radcliff, the dad, says, "I believe so." And he says, what we need to do is we need to talk about this. He says, sometimes that means sitting down and saying, this lifestyle that you're choosing is immoral. It's wrong. And he said later, we won't allow kids to have a drink. We won't allow them to have a cigarette. We won't allow them to do all these other things, but we'll literally do child abuse on that kid. And then he said, our whole church is looking at each other and saying, it is my job to love on you. And it's my job also every once in a while to take you out to the woodshed and spank your butt. Also thing that did not age well. But that's what Frank Radcliffe said while his son Zach was sitting next to him 2 years ago. And during that entire response, Zach was just chiming in with, right, yes, yup, things like that. While he must have known he was a bigger threat to children than any of these purported doctors who affirm trans kids. Like, how disturbing is that? The same people who condemn trans people in the name of denouncing immorality ignored the sex predator sitting right next to them. And the sex predator may have gotten away with his alleged crimes for years, largely because he was protected by the shield of Christianity, which gave him access to children along with unearned levels of trust. I mean, I see a guy in a MAGA hat, and my thinking here is, it's always the ones you absolutely suspect. All right, I'm done there. What questions we got here? Was it the congregation's kids who were abused, or did they not care enough to ask? That's a great question. I wonder that myself, and right now I have not found any information about who the victims were, what their stories are, where they came from. My assumption is that he met the kids in church through church, but I don't know that. So I can't speculate on where he met these kids that he was talking to and abusing. I'm impressed they actually fired him. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they did. They did it after, more than a week after the allegations came out. But like, I feel like their hand was forced at that point. At that, the evidence must have been irrefutable for them to do it. And I kind of want to know how much pushback they gave to the police at first. Did the police come and say, "Hey, we got news about one of these staffers that works here"? And did the church say, "No, you're lying. This is fake, whatever"? Or did they just say, "Oh, that's disturbing. We're going to move forward with this then"? I don't know. I'm sure he got a generous severance package. I don't know if he did, but man, would you be surprised if they did, right? That wouldn't be out of question, would it? No commendations for doing the bare minimum. Yeah, for the church, like they're cooperating with the police. I don't know what else they're doing. I don't know what they're telling the congregation. I don't know if they're soliciting as much information as they can, if they're reaching out to people who might have attended the church 10 years ago and saying, "Hey, do you know anything about this? Do you have any stories we ought to know about?" I don't know what else they're doing. So I'm worried that they might be doing the bare minimum. I'm glad they're doing the bare minimum, but I wish they would be more proactive in doing even more.